I wanted to welcome you guys to the College Salon series done by AIA Austin in collaboration with AIA El Paso, the Women in Architecture series. Uh, Today's discussion is called Finding Your Voice, Speaking Up Without Burnout. So some quick introductions. I just wanted to introduce the chairs of the Austin chapter. We have Alejandra Chavez, who is the current WiA Austin chair for 2025. And then we also have Danielle Smith, who is the current WiA Austin chair-elect for 2025. And then we have the WiA El Paso chair, which is Stephanie Barrios for 2025, and the chair-elect for 2025, which is myself, Isa Sepulveda. So uh, we want to say a special thank you to our sponsors. On the left-hand bubble, we have the sponsors for WiA Austin, and on the right side, we have the sponsors for WiA El Paso. We can't do any of what we do without our sponsors, so we always want to make sure that we give a big thank you for all of their support. Um, we really wouldn't make this happen without them. But now for our final session of the College Salon series, Speaking Up Without Burning Out, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator, which is Diana Esquivel-Gamboa from WiA Austin.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here. As you heard, we're going to talk about burnout and what that mean and how do we handle it and how do we deal with it. I'm happy to be joined by all of these amazing women. All of them have been selected for their knowledge, where they are in their careers, and all the things that they can bring to the table. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. So Camille, if we want to start with you.
Sure. Hi, I am Camille Jobe. I am a founding partner of Jobe Corral Architects. That's where I have been for the last almost 12 years now. Before that, I had a firm called Urban Jobe Architecture for 10 years. I started that when I was in the Bay Area, and that's where I went to grad school. And what can I tell you? We work on a variety of different types of projects, and we have an office of about 11 to 12 people right now, depending on what side of the hiring cycle you're looking at. And that's it.
And Camille, you're also a fellow, correct?
I got my fellowship this year, correct?
Congrats. Awesome. Yeah, Paulina, I want to go next.
That's amazing. Congratulations, Camille. My name is Paulina Lagos. I am an architect and very recent principal of Exigo Architecture in El Paso, Texas. We are about a 20-person firm, and we've been very blessed to have grown very rapidly in the last 5 years, I would say. And so obviously with that comes a lot of growth and structural challenges that I'd be happy to share on this topic. I've been, I guess, practicing architecture since 2006. I graduated from UT Austin with my bachelor's. I was definitely burned out after that, so I took a break to work. I got my first job in New York and then moved back to my hometown, where I started taking my licensing exams and became a licensed architect in 2014. And so that's kind of where I am in my journey. I've been at my firm for 8 years, and I've been a partner here almost 5 years, and just last year was promoted to principal. Thanks for having me.
Cici.
All right. Hi, I'm Cici Strabbing. I am currently a project manager and an associate working for Kephart. Kephart is a multi-family residential company that is based in Denver, but I work remotely in Austin for them. I have been with Kephart on and off since college, and I started as an intern and worked my way up. And I've been in my current position as an associate for the last year and a PM for the last 5 or 6 years. And I got my undergraduate at CU Boulder in Colorado, and then my undergraduate or my master's at Woodbury University in Burbank, California. And I am currently not licensed, but we could talk about that as well as part of my burnout journey and how life took a turn, had a kid, COVID, all of it. Still on my licensing journey, but not licensed yet.
Thank you. Paula?
Hi, everyone. I'm Paula Cano. Currently, I'm a junior designer at SOM. Yeah, we have a SOM office in Austin. I'm, in fact, the first hire. SOM is this huge legacy company, big projects. We are fascinated about being here in Texas. So my role is connecting with local people, is matching and connecting the dots. We are working hard to get close to the community, and my role beyond being a designer is to build community among AIA chapters, the ULI, building enclosures, you name it, you will see my face in many, many places. I graduated from UT almost 2 years ago, Master of Architecture. I've been living here in Texas for 5 years, lived in Europe, have lived in South America. So happy to call Texas my new home. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get into it. So I Google what burnout is because I feel like everyone thinks burnout is something different or defines it differently. So in theory, burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged excessive stress from a job or for people that are caregiving or parenting. So it was interesting for me that it will specifically mention those type of things because it sees it as something where you have to give from you to others for you to be actually exhausted, and that gets you to burnout. But we all think about burnout as a feeling, but as individuals, there are different, and that we are all at different stages of our careers. Like we heard from Camille, she's a owner. Paulina's a principal. Cici, you're in your journey of getting your license, and then also working remotely. And then Paula, you kind of getting all the fire of a firm here in Austin. So I want to hear from each of you. What makes you? How do you know you're burning out? Like what defines for you burnout? Whoever wants to start. Doesn't have to be in order.
I'll start. Um, I love what I do. I love architecture, and there have been points in time when I can like directly point back to it and recognize a point at which I thought I had fallen out of love with it. So I think there's a point where you get to work and things just don't seem to bring the same joy, right? So that's like the first piece of it. I feel like you get there when you no longer feel like what you're doing is being recognized as a contribution, or you're feeling like you're making a meaningful contribution to your community in some way. And that happens for various different reasons. So for me, it's when you just can't seem to get out of that cranky mode. That's how I recognize it. And I'm sure you guys have all been there. And it doesn't matter how much sleep you get, and it doesn't matter how many walks you take, right? Like you can't seem to recover from the tired. So the question was, how do you recognize the burnout, or how do you feel the burnout?
Either or.
Okay.
I mean, they're both the same, right? Like you have to feel it. You recognize it because you're feeling it.
Yeah. It's a general loss of joy,
Yeah. Okay.
and it stinks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in and tag on to what Camille said because I don't think anyone notices it at first. It's a little bit of a slow burn, not no pun intended, but it is a bit of a slow burn. Like it you don't recognize it for a while, and then all of a sudden you realize this isn't fun anymore. And I think one of the hardest parts about my current position as a project manager, there are days where I feel like I did not get into architecture to only be on emails, meetings, and hurting consultants. But that's what a lot of my job is. And I think I think that recognition of why did we all get into this profession? There's a passion around something, and trying to find that again is what gets you out of the burnout, but it does creep up on you.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
you don't
wanna,
know that it's there until it's there.
Right.
yeah, Cici says something that is key, that you don't feel it at the beginning. And when you are young, I'm not as young actually. It took me 7 years to finish undergrad because I felt burned out and I dropped out architecture. I was done. Moved to Europe, working a completely different thing, finished my undergrad, and my master's was a little bit of like, I will have fun because I've already burned out at whatever results. So you're numb. You're numb. Like you feel that because you're young and you have so much energy, burnout is part of the career, it's part of the journey. And I think the difference between me feeling burnout early in my undergrad, which is 10 years ago, now my grad time, 2 years ago, was being able to speak up. And when I speak up with mental health counselor of the faculty, she said like, at least half of your classmates have reached out to me. And I was like, what? And when I started talking with people and being transparent, like I cried yesterday. And everyone like, actually I did too. Like we don't speak up about those things because we think that we have to excel in every single class, because if you show that you're weak, no one wants to work with you. There is some weird association that we tend to do as a designer, that if you are a bad designer, you're a bad person, which is not true. And we kind of don't teach students, or at least I found it later in my career, about emotional intelligence and just being able to say, no, I need to stop. So yeah, this is how I feel burnout. And I hope someone that is there feel that is not alone. And yeah, please reach out to your classmates and professors.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I completely agree. I don't think I knew I was burned out until I was really crashing and had to kind of stop and reflect and say, what is going on? Then realizing my nervous system is completely out of whack. And this is what burning out is. And I think for me, it started with, just pushing yourself so hard. Sometimes it's overworking, and then the demands of, sometimes really high profile projects. You don't want to mess up. You want to be very accessible. You have everyone pulling at you in every direction. I think that is not sustainable for the long haul, right? Is realizing that, there's a limit to that, I think. For me, it was definitely a lot of anxiety, waking up, very easily falling asleep, but waking up repeatedly every day at 3 a.m., just worried about all the things that I needed to do. I'm also a mom. I have 2 daughters. And so then, kind of overreacting at very minor things that probably didn't merit that reaction. And so I think it did take me a while. At first, you just think you're tired, or maybe I'm hangry, or there's these other things. But really taking a moment to reflect if the people around you are also noticing a change in your behavior, and you're just physically, either not getting enough rest, or you just feel something is off in your body. I think it was, for me personally, just a really extended period of time of almost 2 to 3 years, where just pushing myself to the limit, that finally made me realize, okay, and I had to Google it, and it was like, oh, it's my nervous system. It's just not regulated. So I think, I agree. It takes a minute to figure it out, but I think, really making sure you're listening to the people around you that are saying, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah. For me, it's dreaming with rabbit. I don't wake up at 3 a.m., but then I have nightmares of rabbit.
Yeah.
So I feel you on that. So you all touch a little bit on this. We live in an industry, we work in an industry that expect us to work through constant deadlines and, work through the chaos and have these long nights. I know specifically when you're in school, long nights is like, oh yeah, that's normal. Architecture students, you guys sleep in the studio. Like that's totally okay. Where it's not. So how do you guys balance once you know you're in that state of burnout, but you still have to you still have to get your commitments, on point. Like you have to do your deadlines and get your drawings out. And for the managers in the group, you have to still manage your whole studio or your team, or make sure people are doing their jobs. How do you manage your own burnout when you still have to keep going?
I'll start again because we're going in order.
Sure, that's it.
Um, how do you say it again? Say
So
the
how do
question.
you once you understand, okay, I'm
How do you
burnout,
get control of it
how
again?
do you manage your burnout when you still have to keep going because
So
you have a job to do?
So how many people have ever like pulled an all-nighter and said, damn, that 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. window was so productive?
Yeah.
No one ever.
No, yeah, I feel like I do.
No one ever. That
I
and
feel like
yet,
there's some area there.
you can do some like weird little stuff that doesn't take any brain waves, but like generally you can't really push through that whole thing. If you had just stopped earlier and then like woken up a little bit early, you probably could have had a fresh brain and done it. So every one of us has done the thing where we're like, I can't really afford to go work out today because I have an extra long day and I've got to do something with the kids and then I have to do the other thing. You kind of have to just force yourself to take all of those things for yourself that you need. And it's nutrition, exercise, sleep. Like those are the big ones. And if you can get those things under your belt every day, it's going to make a huge difference. But, I think I forget who said it now, but the whole idea about the dysregulated nervous system is no joke. And the longer you spend in that cycle of not letting the emotions work their way all the way through the body system, your body just stays in a clamped down state, and it leads to that exhaustion, and you are blind to it. You can't recognize it. You have to find a way to break the cycle. And like it always comes at this time where you're like, well, gosh, I wish I could afford to take that vacation that everyone keeps telling me to do, but there's no way I can do that. I have responsibilities. Every one of you could take a month off right now, and the world would still be there when you came back, right? It would stink. You'd have to catch up on things, or it'd be a giant email slog afterwards. But you just have to figure out that it's a marathon and not a sprint. You're going to have to do this forever. Like you just have to figure out how to take the breaks and not feel guilty about it. And every one of us feels guilty about it every time we do it. And I'm the oldest one here by far. And I still feel guilty about it sometimes. But you just have to figure out how to do it for yourself because you're not as good to everybody else around you if you're not doing it. So for me, it's exercise. I have to do it every morning. And if I don't exercise in the morning, I'm certainly not as good a person at the office all day or with my family at home.
I was going to say that I'm still learning how to be better at figuring out what I need for myself and getting myself out of burnout. It was funny, Deanna and I have a mutual friend that connected us, and when she asked me to do this, I said, how honest do you want me to be about burnout? Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm in it at the moment, and you have to find the small things and start somewhere, whether it is making sure, like Camille said, working out if that's what is most important to you, or just making sure you're eating or drinking, taking breaks, take a 10-minute break. You got to start small and then start working up to more of those bigger routines that can get you out of that mental state or the nervous system breakdown that Paulina was mentioning.
My littlest thing that I've started doing is, when I'm eating lunch, for example, and I eat my lunch really quickly and I want to run back to my desk and I say, okay, just take an extra 10 minutes and just sit and just breathe and just take a minute. Like that it's for me, that has helped tremendously. Or in the morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is I sit, I grab my coffee and I just stare out the window and look at the trees. And it seems silly, but that has just at least helped me slow down and not always be on the go. You know, we're incredibly busy women, I'm sure. And then if some of us are parents, you know, I think exercise is also wonderful. But just in my day to day, I'm just trying to slow down and not rush through, you know, to get to the next task. That helps me a lot.
Yeah, I wrote down 3 things that I've learned. I told you I dropped out architecture. I quit architecture. I've said when I was 20 something, I have so much to live. And then traveling and meeting people, I found that architecture is not that. It's what we made architecture, like we portray that as an architecture, but it's not. So summing out what the lady said, and it's something that I've learned, it's about separating what's urgent to what's important. Not everything can be urgent, not everything can be important. I'm so down with Camille and Paulina. To me, mornings are like, I need to do my stretches. I need to stretch my back. And even if I'm a little bit late, 2 to 5 minutes of stretches. Second, cultivate what's important to you. The master was a little bit complicated for me because I'm not from the US and I didn't know what the midterm was. There were so many things that I didn't know, and you can't breathe because every day is a day. I started dancing tango and I'm still dancing tango. I love dancing. I do other dances. And I took tango as my 1 hour every Thursday that I know that I need to keep up with architecture because Thursday is my tango day. And lastly, that's something that it really helped me is the tomato timers, the Pomodoro timers, you know, that every 25 minutes, you have a break of 5 minutes. And after 4 lapses, you take 10 minutes break. I know I have 90 minutes to work, dedicate to 90 minutes. And then I'm happy. Go and grab your coffee, chat with your friend, watch whatever cat videos. It's allowing to have those moments of joy. And this is how I navigate them. Don't get me wrong, I got my break point in the masters, but I feel that I navigated very well after breaking down like twice in my life. So this is after many bad experiences. So yeah, I'm glad that we all agree on like, let's have a coffee, let's talk, you know, pet the dog, whatever. Yeah, that's important things.
Well, I
Well,
need to
no,
get your tango contact because I want to learn how to
Oh,
dance
yeah,
tango.
yeah.
yeah, that sounds fantastic as well. But I was going to add just one last little tidbit that I've learned as well. So we have a communication consultant in our office and work through emotional intelligence and all of that Paula was mentioning. And he reminded that we're all owners of our life and we can dictate how we run our day to day. And so if you're in a meeting, it is okay for you to tell everyone in that meeting, I'm going to end this meeting 5 to 10 minutes early so I can go use the restroom, eat a snack, something. You do not have to use the whole meeting time to go on any topic. You have the power to end early just so you can take those moments for yourself.
Yeah, that's very smart. I heard I think Janky told me this one time. You're the CEO of your own life. So I like that. So when you're in your career early enough, you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of the kids when they get to finish college and get to a firm, you know, they try to just push through it because they think that that's what they have to do. Like they don't know half of the things they're doing probably because sometimes you don't learn those things in school, right? And they know that they have to just get to deadlines and get their job done. So as for the managers and the principals in the group, how do you guys help your younger staff to feel confident of asking you questions, of reaching out to you guys when they start feeling burned out? How do you make that communication easy for the younger staff to feel like I'm not gonna look bad if I ask for help, or if I tell my superior like, oh, I cannot do this because I'm feeling burnout? How do you guys help them reach out to you to be able to open up on those type of conversations?
I'm laughing a little bit here because nobody in my office has ever had a problem with asking for time off. We actually do give a fairly robust like PTO holiday package, and I don't think we've ever told anyone, no, you cannot take that day off or you cannot take that time off. They know that they can come in and say, I need, a week or whatever the amount of time is. And we just say, make sure you check in with your project managers, you check in with your team, and you guys have everything covered. And, the sooner we can get the notice, the better everyone can plan for your absence. I started a partnership because it was, I had my own firm without a partner for 10 years before I joined up with AIA. And it was difficult because you couldn't ever take, a decent chunk of time off, because, most of the people working at my office were pretty young. I was teaching at UT, and it was a lot of people who were sort of fresh out of school, and you couldn't leave the office for a week or two to, go somewhere and expect that everything was going to be running super smoothly. So having a business partner is super helpful, right? And those guys, everyone in our office, they watch us and they see what we do. They know we take time off when we need time off. They know we take a long weekend with our kids to take them to go see a college or whatever the deal is. And so I think a lot of it is, people watch what you do, not what you say. And I don't think anyone at our office has ever thought we were going to shut them down, because it's the way that we work too, right? So I think you just have to set the example. And I think this goes for people who are project managers and at every level. We don't need to be doing it the way that we used to do it, where everyone was like, you're leaving already? Everyone has their own schedules at our office. Some people come in at like 6:30 in the morning and they take off at 3. And nobody says a word about it because they know that they've been there doing their work and they know that they're reliable. And we always talk about working to the project, not the timeline. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of little things, but we've never had a problem. We've never had a problem with people asking for time off ever. They just like put it on the calendar sometimes. They don't even tell us they're going to do it. They feel very welcome to just take time whenever.
That's
So
awesome.
hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think it's important as a young person, and sometimes it's hard, right? You just want to get that job and you want to start working right away, but making sure that you kind of vet the office culture a little bit and ask people who work there what it's like to work there if you can. I think in my particular case, I'm in a kind of strange spot where I've been an employee of this company, and then I was promoted into a leadership position. So our staff feels very comfortable coming to me with lots of things, almost too comfortable, I would say. But no, I think our office culture is, I think, generally very healthy. I think, similarly, we have a very, open policy about ask for your PTO. We also have probably 13 women working on staff. Many are moms. And so we do offer them a flexible work schedule. So some come in at 9 and leave at 3. And we had like 5 babies in the last 2 years. And so it's really important that you find a place to work that is open to either offering some flexibility and is very, open about offering days off. I don't think we ever deny anyone's PTO or vacation time either. I think we also don't, as long as I've been here, I think the latest I've been here is 2 a.m. one time. And so our office culture isn't all about all-nighters or anything like that. And another nice thing that we just started doing in the last couple of years is implementing this, what we call a step and sip program, where we will pay for you to take a break, go outside, walk and get yourself a smoothie or a coffee or whatever, and we pay for it. You get a little coupon and you go and take a break. And it's really amazing how much that like 15-minute walk outside just can completely change your mood if you had like a really terrible meeting or just really cranky. Everyone comments on, oh, I just feel so much better. You grab your colleague, you go take a little walk and vent and get whatever you need off your chest. You come back and you're like a new person. So I think office culture is really important. And I would say that, I think as employees, we also have to interview the firms that we're going to go work in. So that would be my advice.
I love hearing about Camille and Paulina's firms because my firm is very similar in the sense that it's very flexible in the schedules and respecting of each other's lives outside of work. And, also not a 2 a.m. kind of culture of a firm, but there's plenty of architecture firms out there like that. And I think that that's why I said it was refreshing hearing Paulina and Camille talk about their firms, because when you can find a firm that really supports you and supports your growth, but also supports what you do outside of work is very important. And one thing I was going to go back on was how I encourage my team. So I currently have one staff member that is part-time, and she does school part-time and then work part-time. And when she first started with us, she was very timid in asking questions. And I think, Camille, you were saying about leading by example. And when you start to have your whole team be very collaborative and asking a lot of questions, they start feeling comfortable that, oh, they're asking questions that I would have never thought, or I thought they already knew, or even as a manager, I like to say I'm not good in Revit, but just because I want them to feel like they can share things with me. I feel like I'm okay. But, these days I'm like, oh, you tell me how to do that. And I think when you start encouraging questions where they feel like, oh, I thought you knew this, but okay, I'm teaching you, that's when they start to feel more comfortable about um, uh, opening up and asking more questions. And I think that helps a lot, especially early in your career.
Guess to wrap up, because I definitely am not as experienced as you ladies, but something that I've noticed is trust is everything, and burnout starts when you started feeling alone, that you cannot share how you feel. Something that Camille said about the business partner, I like how you emphasized partner section. You definitely need allies, at least someone in your office that know what you're going through, not everything, but someone that knows you beyond work. Like if you are missing something or you're slow on that day, it's not like, you have to produce. It's like, hey, yeah, I know you've been tired, or I know you run a marathon, whatever. And I love the step and sip because, again, it's about trust. You trust someone, you trust your employee, you trust your partner, you trust your young designer that, hey, the person won't judge me if I say, I don't know Revit. I think it's about building trust and not feeling alone. I don't like feeling alone. And I think architecture is very lonely somehow. We all like to keep our things to ourselves. And I think it's a great moment. And I love that you firms are like, this is all about community, and work will come at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that architecture is very lonely. I feel you. I feel like sometimes I feel like that. I feel like I'm in my own little bubble suffering for my own misery, I guess. But yeah, so you guys hit a little bit on my next question. My next question was like, once you're looking for your job and kind of out there looking at what's out there available, you balance red flags versus a healthy firm culture. You all touch a lot on very healthy stuff that your firm does, but what will be red flags that you could say like, yeah, that firm will not support you. we're used to hearing like, if you're not suffering, you're not trying, or you sleep when you graduate. Or, sometimes firms will tell you, oh, we believe in work-life balance, but then they will kind of preach or kind of celebrate the people that actually stay late and work late. So what type of red flags will you say, for the younger people in the call listening in? Once you're looking for your job, these type of things you have to be in the lookout to make sure that you don't get to a firm that doesn't have all the healthy culture that you guys have mentioned that your firms have.
Well, I would say one thing we started doing during COVID when we were interviewing new candidates, and we're trying to continue doing this because it has a lot of value. We would interview the candidate, and if it was someone that we were moving forward for further consideration, we would set them up on a Zoom call with 2 or 3 of our employees without us on the call. So they could talk to people that were at the office and ask all those questions that you'd like to ask, but you think like you're going to be offensive or you're not going to get the straight answer or something. And that was really helpful. I think we heard from a lot of people because they could have like a more casual conversation with someone their age and try to understand the culture of the office a little bit better. So if you are not offered that opportunity, you can ask for it. No one's going to refuse you that, right? If you're a valued candidate and they want you to come work, they're going to do what they can to, I mean, they might give you someone who is just going to tell you the perfect answers or whatever, but probably not. You're probably going to be able to get some good, fair information from someone, from a peer, right? That's not the owner of the firm. I think everyone says that they try to promote work-life balance. I think it's hard to really know. Just like when we're hiring people, it's hard to really know what we're getting when we're hiring people. I think the hiring process is a fraught thing. Like everyone is sort of bad at it from both ends. But I think if you find a firm that values the same things you value in the work, you're probably going to find pretty good alignment, even if you have to work more hours or some other thing that may not be a perfect alignment, because I do feel like a big percentage of what causes the burnout isn't necessarily the amount of hours or the lack of vacation. It is the lack of perceived value for your work. So if you don't feel like you're aligned and that you're working on something that you feel is contributing to the community, or if you're really into sustainability and these guys don't give whatever about sustainability, you should know that right away, because that's really going to get you to burn out faster than anything else, I think. If you love the work, and you're aligned on the work, it's going to feel a lot better working the longer hours when you have to. Everyone has to do it every now and then.
I don't know how to follow up to Camille because she always gives such great answers.
Yeah.
Paula said something earlier about trust. I think that's very important after you go through the whole interview process. And I agree, Camille. Our firm also, our hiring committee also, for second interview, sets it up with younger staff so people can get to know each other and get the real scoop of the firm. But I believe trust is huge when you get into a firm, and being able to feel like you can be your true self and be okay with asking questions or be okay with on vulnerability. Um, and that's part of the reason why I've been at my firm for as long as I have, just because I felt like I could ask the questions and be supported. Um, so yeah, that's my answer for that one. Yeah.
Oh, the question was red flags, I think.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I'm trying to think back to my early days as a very young architect. And I think not being able to ask for time off was a huge one. because it was like, can I please have one day to do this? And the response was, well, I'm not happy about it, but okay. That should not be the answer.
No.
I think another thing that I should have taken as a red flag was, you know, everything is urgent. Everything is urgent. And that's just not true. I think you need to prioritize the most important things on the daily. And then those things are urgent, right? I think that was a huge red flag. Not feeling supported, right? I think as a young person, you know, especially if you've not worked other places, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what the right thing is all the time, right? And so I think for me, as I grew in this firm, and you know, I've always worked in smaller firms, and so I usually was like a one woman show, you know, and then our projects got bigger and more important and more complex, and then we needed a team of people, right? And then the kind of structural change that needed to happen. You know, the first time I did this, I was kind of like project architect, project manager, and production all at once, and I was super burned out. And I learned in that process, this is not the way you're supposed to do things. And so then I advocated for myself and said, hey, I'm only going to do this again if now you get me a project architect and 3 staff, you know. And so sometimes it's a little bit of both. And like I said, our firm kind of grew a little bit too quickly for what we were prepared to do. And so I think it is a symbiotic relationship. You know, I think the company needs you, but then you also need to advocate for yourself in order to kind of establish a successful way to work so that you don't get burned out. And so the projects are successful and the company is successful. So I think so many things, I think I could just go on and on about that, but I think those are some of the biggest red flags that I can recall off the top of my head.
And what I was going to add about finding trust is also recognizing when people are being disrespectful. I think that's really telling of um, who you're working for and who you're working with. You know, I've worked at other firms where the owner is not respectful in how they treat um, the staff or even talk about their clients. And that's very telling of what kind of firm that they're willing to run. And so, you know, there are moments where some people step out of their bounds, and if you can have a conversation with them and they react differently and not continue in that disrespectful manner, that can change it to a green flag. But I think it is how you it is how those people react to certain situations that will tell you if that's a firm that you really want to be with.
I just want to cut in really fast. We'll let you answer right now, Paula, but we do have time for one more quick question after this, and then we have to move on to our Q&A.
Last question.
We can move to the next one if you want, or unless you want to touch on any of the red flags.
Yeah, well, I'm still developing my red flag catalog. And this is applicable to anything, any, you know, community group or whatever. What Cici said, complementing, is like, if you see that someone is capable to treat someone kindly because it's power, you should be able to treat you well as an applicant. And I applied at least to 50 students here in Austin. It was very challenging for me. And you see some people like, we're not hiring, I'm sorry. It was still friends. Other people immediately like, you don't have experience. And then you see them giving conference about well-being or whatever. And you're like, I'm glad I'm not there. So for those applicants, and I know you're really looking for your first job and curate it well, and the way to do it is find the values, as Camille said. I'm very connected with communities, different groups. I volunteer all the time. Are those companies in those communities? Or are they just advocating for, you know, green architecture, but not even in the green architecture community hub? Well, it sounds like there's something weird happening. So talk, talk a lot with a lot of people ask. And if you don't get a job in a big firm because it looks pretty in your resume, maybe that wasn't the place for you. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Connect with other people in the industry, and listen what they can tell you about the firms.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Well, we talked a little bit at the beginning about what you guys do when you feel burnout, like take vacations, take some time off, work out. But let's kind of wrap up with once you experience a burnout, once you know you're there, and once you know you got out of it, how do you rebuild and remotivate your creativity and your own self? If that's even something we do.
I mean, yeah, before we started the call, we were talking about I'm teaching at UT this semester. Otto and I are doing it together. Sometimes we do it separately. I find that highly motivating, just working with the younger people and the crazy ideas that, would never come into your office, exploring, 12 different projects of the same project at the same time. There's just an energy level that is different and it's inspiring. And I think the people teaching those classes get just as much out of it as the people that are in the class. I know I do every time I do it. I find that to be really fulfilling and recharging. I also have more than one group of colleagues that are good friends that I meet with on a regular basis that are inspiring people to me, that I love the work that they do, or I love how they run their office, or I love some other aspect. And I have had some of the most like nourishing conversations with these guys, just figuring out how they do it. And I think you start to see that everyone's experiencing the same stuff and laugh a little with some people that you enjoy being around. I really think there's nothing that's more sort of recharging than having a good laugh with friends and getting out in the fresh air.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also take a lot of joy from teaching architecture here in El Paso. It can be, when you get stuck in a rut of emails and just, all project management, you get to kind of look back to the reason why you got into this profession to begin with. And it can be a very nice creative outlet. And it can also reaffirm kind of your ideas about architecture when you're working with students. And I think that in mentorship is a great way to sort of look back and realize that, for someone like Camille or myself, like we have come a long way, and there are younger generations who aspire to do what we're doing, and it's sometimes really easy to forget when you get caught up in all of the emailing and managing and not so exciting stuff about architecture. I think making sure you find a way to kind of reassert your love of architecture in whatever form that takes. And I think a lot of that has to do with community and WiA especially, and just making connections in your community and helping others. I think being in the service of others, I think, is really important.
I was also going to say community, finding something outside of your day-to-day. I like going to networking events. I know it's kind of weird to say that because networking can be very daunting at the same time, especially if you don't know anyone. But when you start showing up a lot, you start recognizing the same people, and then you start building your community. And it's sometimes work, but then at the same time, it's not. It's tapping into other minds that are in the same industry, and exactly what Camille was saying, like hearing how they're doing things somewhere else, and then you're like, we should be doing that here, and start implementing those small things, and it just doesn't feel like the day-to-day grind as much, but you're still talking about why you love this industry, and get more ideas out of that.
Saw some questions. I'll be quick. I trust in the process. I know there is a lot of up and downs. And when you are a newbie and you know a lot of people is competing for your job, and there is a cohort of 60 people is graduating with you looking for the same position, I'm not here to compete. Maybe some people take architecture as a marathon, as Camille said. And this is when burnout starts, like feeling, started thinking from the scarcity, like someone is grabbing this from me, and someone wants my job, and I'll have to work harder and for sure we all compete, we have to bid for projects. But I trust in the process. I didn't get my master from a chocolate bar. I've done, I don't know, a decade, you name it, 2 decades, you got lady, 3 decades of architecture. Maybe not being as creative as you were 5 months ago is not the end of the world. Maybe your creativity is changing. I was the oldest in my cohort, and I was like the international student, ended up dancing tango, told her, and I felt like I'm out of place. And then I felt like, but you're doing a master, you already have an undergrad. Come on, Paula, like it's not, you don't have to excel all the time. Everyone excels in different ways. So you're not alone. That place, someone is writing there, you're not alone. You don't have to win every time. Yeah.
Yeah. I I agree with kind of all that you guys said. I'm gonna add for me, just doing things like this reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And sometimes you feel like doing things like this is daunting as well, because you're like, "Oh, I already had, 8 hours at work, and I had to work late yesterday, and I'm just so tired, and then I have to do this also." But then after you do it, you feel like so like failed. And it kind of reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing, and that's what sometimes motivates me when I'm feeling burnout. Okay, do you wanna hop to the questions, Isis, or
Yes, I'm
okay,
about to share my screen.
yeah.
So now we have our Q&A. I did see that we had some questions in the chat. Let me just see. Okay, so our first question for you ladies is from Diana. And she said, what advice would you give to women who feel they have to overperform just to be heard or respected?
I could tell the quick little story of like every time I'm asked one of these questions about like, oh, how is it being a woman in architecture? And like we've created this weird bubble that I started creating, almost 20 years ago when I went out on my own, where I just don't work with people that I don't want to work with. And we have like this little fantasy world that we created where we built everything just how we want to live in it. So um, I haven't I haven't had to deal with that in a long time, and nobody in my office has to deal with it because the women way outnumber the men all the time, and the women bosses are women. So I don't think I don't have any really strong advice for that, because except like put yourself in a place where you think that's not going to have to be the case, which is sort of what we did. When I was first starting, I felt like I had to do that a lot, especially on job sites, just to be taken seriously. Also, when I grew my gray hair, people started believing me more, so I didn't have to outperform as much.
Yeah, my only advice would be don't overperform. I always say be yourself. I am a very quiet leader myself, and I'm doing just fine. And I think the culture is changing quite a bit. I don't have a lot of trouble on job sites anymore, and I dye my gray hair, you know. So I think the culture is changing quite a bit, and so I think people will respect you for your work. And the point is, you do have to speak. So when you have something to contribute, know that it's okay to speak up and share it, and you don't always have to be right. So that would be my short advice.
I
Uh,
think,
oh, sorry.
no,
I
no,
was
go
gonna just
Cici.
say, speak with confidence,
Mm.
but but exactly what the other ladies were saying, you don't have to overperform. But also I quit those jobs that didn't respect me as a woman. So don't feel like you have to stick around.
Yeah, they don't respect you as a person, regardless how you look, how you speak. did you come from? Yes, I agree.
All right. And like a quick little thing, like speak with confidence, but also it's okay if you're wrong. And if you're wrong, own up to it. People respect that a lot too. But I think that's like the biggest thing is like owning up when you're wrong. So our next question is from Jinky. She says, question for the crew. How do you advise new and young hires to speak up when there is a possibility that they can be seen as entitled or falling into a generational stereotype of not wanting to work hard?
I don't know. I don't think I have. It's pretty easy to tell between the people that are in the office that care about their work and have ownership of their work and want to do it to the best of their ability, and people who might not fall into that category. I don't think there's any one little thing that you're going to say that is going to sway that one way or another. It's a group, like it's an accumulation of actions and how you perform your work and how you engage with the people in your group. So I would say be yourself and ask the questions and do the things. And is that the answering the question? I'm trying to read it here. Up when there's a possibility that they can be seen as entitled. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, hey, I'll just chime
as long
in.
as you're taking responsibility.
Well, I think one of the things I would like your guys' thoughts on is like, there's always this stereotype from whoever is the youngest generation that they're not putting in their dues and they're not like willing to step up. And I think that mindset can lead to this overperforming that Diana's questions about. So it's like, how do we tell people that they need to speak up and ask for help? But then there is also this like stereotype that their generation is entitled and doesn't want to do any work. And I feel that those two things are really legitimate. Like we're seeing this in the marketplace.
I think to add to what Janky just said, and kind of time Camille with what you said at the beginning of your response, I like that you mentioned there's nothing that you can say that will make me believe that you don't want to work unless it's something strictly about work. Like one thing is asking questions about, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you explain it to me? Versus, hey, I don't know how to do this. I'm just not gonna do it. So I think there's a very fine line of asking about like, hey, I really don't understand it. Please help me versus I just don't think I have to do it because I I have to work late to do it and I just don't want to work late. Um, I don't know if that specifically answered your question, Janky, but I know where you're going from. And based on what Camille just mentioned, I think that's how I would see it.
I think it
I
also
have
has to do
a,
with attitude,
yeah.
and the way that it's said, right? I've gone to a younger staff and said, hey, I really need you to work a little bit later today to get something done. This doesn't happen all the time. And it's the attitude that is returned. If it's more of a team player attitude, or if it's going to be, that's not my job, or I'm not staying late. I think it's how you're portraying yourself. That's where the thought of entitlement comes in. And then that's how I would respond in return. So I think hopefully that answers that a little bit.
I would also say that if the partners and the project managers and the higher up people in the office jump in on other people's projects when they have a deadline, then it gets repaid more often. And a lot of times it's just setting that standard by showing the example and being the good teammate first, and then you don't see as much of it. Although we have had to have talks with people sometimes because either they had to leave and they just didn't communicate it well, and it's generally a communication issue. It's hardly ever an ill-intentioned thing where they don't want to do a good job at their job. So if you err to the side of assume they want to do a good job, figure out why they did the weird, dumb thing that was inconsistent with doing a good job at their job, you can usually get to the bottom of what the situation is.
I have a complimentary question as a emerging professional too. What I've noticed, I trust higher senior principals. I know they have figured out somehow how to navigate. But when you are sit down next to someone that is working beyond 8 hours just because you want to excel at, and it sets the tone that everyone should, if you are not playing the game, you are perceived as the lazy person when you are working 8 hours. I don't know how you ladies handle that when there is this person that wants to be the showman and you are like, I personally don't play the game. Like, I do my work, what I have to do within the deadlines. But yeah, I don't know how do you handle it. For sure, you don't want to discourage people to work more, but it's setting a little bit like a toxic tone from my perspective.
I think in my experience, it has more to do with an individual's sense of ownership, you know, than this like insistence on you have to work late. Like I think in many cases I worked on a weekend, right? Not because anyone asked me to, but because I felt like my week would be less stressful if I just came in a few hours and just
Ready.
knocked some things out, right? I think again, I think it goes back to office culture and the kind of place that you're working in. I know that I often ask, are you available, you know, to come in or stay a couple hours late because we have this presentation tomorrow. But yeah, I think in general, like I said, I think our office is pretty healthy where, you know, 6 o'clock, everyone's out of here. So I think usually it's people who are maybe they just want to crank something out. I think if they're doing it to kind of be a show person and show that, you know, they're excelling more than the person next to them, I think you find out pretty quickly. And I think those are probably not the right reasons, right? And I think owners, I think we know who's there for the right reasons and who's not. And I think a lot of times we have to say, hey, you need to go home, get out of here. What are you still doing here? Go get some rest, go spend some time with your kids. And I think it all comes back down to office culture and a lot of it, I think it's not all just top down, right? Some of it is bottom up. I think my opinion is that architecture culture is changing quite a bit. I see it a lot in
I agree.
school, where I teach, you know, we have to be, we try to be not mean like the way they were mean when I was in school, right? So I think in general, it's changing. Employees demand, you know, a different circumstance now. And I think we all have to be really open to change and adapting to, you know, a new culture in the world of architecture.
Thank you.
All right. We have another question from Danielle. She says, we have a mix of work styles across the panel, whether working remotely or in office, and perhaps even hybrid. So can you all share some of the experience pros and cons of each style and how one might safeguard against burnout, depending on what kind of work style that you do?
I'll jump in as the remote worker. I've been remote working for my company for 9 years. I've been doing it before COVID, and the first couple of years, I overcompensated, similarly to another question about women overcompensating sometimes because we feel like we have to prove something. And I felt like I had to constantly be at my desk because nobody could see me, physically see me. And so I was glued to my desk from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and even worked through lunch because I felt like I had to be on the spot if somebody called me. And you quickly realize that you don't have to do that. You know, people know that you're working hard with the output of the work that you do. And you know, you don't have to be on the spot all the time, even if people cannot physically see you. It all boils down to the amount of work that you end up actually doing and what people see, the work that's done and yeah.
Well, I'm definitely not a remote worker. Although I will take a Friday remote from time to time, just because that is an easier time for me to be uninterrupted and get some work done at home. And I find that to be extremely helpful a couple of times a month to just have that quiet time with no meetings in it. We have one of our first employees has been remote for the last 6 years. She worked in the office first, so she could see the culture and understood the culture of the office in person, and then went remote. And I think that is definitely an easier transition than having someone who's always been remote. But I will tell you, she is one of our favorites and best employees, and it is still very difficult. We have to have some very regular check-ins because she will begin to feel isolated because she doesn't hear just the daily chatter that's happening in the office because we're all in one space. It's not like we're all remote and we're just online like we were doing in COVID. And she misses just enough little things, and she misses the office lunches and like all of that connecting that you do that forms that culture every day. And so we have to try to make a point when we're having meetings to get on the Zoom meeting a little early, ask about the kids, figure out what the weather's like in Indiana, like have some off time and tell a few jokes and hang out for a little bit, right? Just to air all of that stuff that doesn't come up just through meeting talk. So from my end, not being a remote, being an in-person, I find that it is very challenging to keep your people fully engaged and happy when they're full-time remote. Although she's still with us, she's still happy enough for sure. But you do have to, it's an active thing that you have to address constantly, I think, to do it right.
Yeah, I think to your point, Camille, we don't do remote work. We're fully in the office. And when we were working remotely during the pandemic, completely agree with Cici. I was just working way too much and I would just never leave my desk, or I would go eat dinner and then go back and work later. And so I think, a byproduct of being really good at your job is that you just get more work, and that very quickly leads to burnout. So I think an important thing to be able to do is to say no when you really need to, and say, you know what, I can't help you with that right now. I need to finish this, or, in a very kind way is saying, I would love to help you. However, can I find someone else who can help you with this task? So I think saying no, and really, I want to stress being an advocate for yourself, I think, because sometimes as partners, we don't know what's going on, with you personally. And so we kind of need you to tell us sometimes. And I think that's a big part of creating a healthy work environment.
Holding your boundaries, creating your boundaries and holding them, and being very vocal about it. And you don't have to sound like a jerk to do it. You just have to say, like, I work this many hours, or this is my limit, or I have to be off by this time on these days because I have to pick up kids, or whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
People will be more understanding than you think.
Yeah.
But we don't know unless you tell us. That's for sure.
I'll wrap up with a story of my early days in SOM. I was the first hire alone in Texas, working remotely, following instructions from people in Chicago, LA. First experience after graduate school, first experience in corporate America. Unless you really have a plan and a strategy behind working remotely at the first job, never do it. And I do it like I did not enjoy my first year at the company, and my bosses know that. This is not a secret. I miss the best part of any good company, the people. And it was me catching up alone, learning all those things alone. Slack was everything for me. For them was not, because they have someone next to each other. I don't know how you Cici do it. To me, I'm an in-person person, even if I had to drive. To me, working remotely, it's an alternative, but it's definitely never my first option. Yeah.
I will say that I started at my company, like I said, when I was in college. So 2008. and that I know the culture and I know the people, and going remote was easier, and exactly what Camille was saying about her colleague. Um, I will say it got really mundane really quick. I did travel a lot to Denver, and I still do sometimes. But I have found other colleagues and friends, and I actually work out of a landscape architecture firm um, 1 or 2 times a week just to get some of that face time. And it might not be my direct colleagues, but we do work with them a lot. So it does feel like I get some people time.
I'm gonna give my perspective because I do hybrid. And I was like you, Paula. When I first moved to Austin, I was working for a firm in Colorado, so I was fully remote. I did that for 2 years, but I'm a person. I'm a in-person person, was what you said. I'm like that. I needed people, so I ended up finding the firm that I'm right now. And I used to love going to the office every day. But I also live in Georgetown. So I drive an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. And there was a point where that got to be a lot. And I started to burn out. And I used to refuse to not, I don't want to take my, because we have a hybrid where you can do 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, and you pick whatever day you want at home and in the office. Um, and I used to not want to take my in-home days because I like to be around people. That's why I changed jobs. But I now take it, and I love my days working from home just because are like a break from 2 hours of driving a day. I normally try to like move it around depending on my schedule. And I try to actually stay at home when I don't have meetings, so I can actually focus on work because those are 2 hours I don't have to spend driving. So I think it's all about culture. Like I feel at the beginning, I feel like I cannot do it because I had to be in the office so people see me because I'm the new one. I'm like kind of owning to my own job and making sure they know what I can do. But now that I've been there for a couple of years, I'm like, okay, they know what I can do. I feel confident. I'm like being at home, and I said for me, they helped me to not burn out because I was at the point where I was exhausted of just driving. And then so I can give you both perspectives, I guess. A hybrid one. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also agree with Paula. And I forgot about this whole COVID thing. I've just blocked it out of my memory, the COVID years. But when we had new hires during that period and they didn't have any time sitting next to someone with more experience or that knew the company or the way that we did things, it was so difficult. And I felt horrible for these young people coming in and starting their careers and being so unplugged. It must have been really, really challenging in ways that I couldn't imagine. So I don't recommend it either. I think at least get in an office for a few years and get some years under your belt in person. It's invaluable.
I also don't recommend it as a remote worker, at least not for the first several years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I also want to open up uh, the floor to any of our students that are listening in, or just anybody who has a question, you can unmute yourself, ask. We do have a couple professors on our as panelists, and I mean everybody here has gone through architecture school. So if you have any questions about, you know, how to deal with burnout when you're still in school, like this is a really good time to do so. So yeah, if anybody has any questions.
I do, and it's pretty much what you just said. Like being a student, like I feel like I'm kind of in one of my classes feeling that little bit of burnout. I'm trying to keep it up because we're almost done with the semester, but I'm like, how do you kind of deal with that knowing you still have those deadlines for those assignments?
It is hard. And I can say that a lot of times I know this is going to be an unpopular thought, but a lot of times you do just have to kind of suck it up and keep moving. And I think what helps me do that oftentimes is to make a list and break it down prioritization wise and just say, like, this is my famous slogan that my partner hates, which is like, what things can I afford to let fall off the back of the truck? And just having the mental vision of, okay, there are a few things that I won't die or I won't fail if I don't do, and you just block them out of your head. and then try to just march through those things that you need to get done, compartmentalized. That's what they call it, right? Like when you are in structures, think about only structures. You cannot be thinking about what's happening in studio and what's happening at, your landscape class or whatever else is happening. If you can figure out how to just think about one thing at a time, it's super helpful in just getting through that slog, because there's no way you're going to reverse the burnout in a 3-week period, right? You need more time to recover than that, but you do have to figure out a coping mechanism to get the stuff done anyway. And then once you get to it, you can get rested. I mean, we've all hit those periods of time where there's just no way to escape it. You've got to get it done. And we do it as like business owners too, right? There are some times where you just want to leave running and screaming, and you've got like a huge stack of stuff in front of you. So for me, that's what it is. Like you just have to sort of make the list and say, okay, if I only did 50% of these things, I would still survive. I wouldn't die. And most of the time you can end up getting it all done anyway, right? But you just have to be able to not have to think about all of it at once.
Yeah, agree. I was never successful in school when I pushed myself to the brink. I tried to do all-nighters like the rest of my studio mates, and I was just a terrible mess. So I quickly realized that that was not a way for me to work. And so I just set really clear times that I would dedicate to my work. And then this idea of perfection just kind of had to leave my mind, because I mean it's just impossible. The work is never ending. I think the other thing that I didn't do in school, I think I was deathly afraid and intimidated of all my teachers. Um, but I have a much different relationship with my students now. And so I think if you're struggling, I think a conversation with your professor would probably help tremendously. And I think you'll find that there are other ways to be successful in studio. And so those would be my 2 tips that I think, having been a student and now teaching, that I would recommend.
Yeah, I don't know if you can combine. How can I explain that? What I try to do for my master's was like, I don't know, have a wood-oriented semester, and I try to squeeze the topic, something that was very familiar, something that I can apply to many from theory, the studio, I don't know, something like a detail. Like you don't have to learn about like 7 different topics that semester, trying to kind of like align everything, that everything had the same speech. I know it's very hard in undergrad. I think in grad you kind of like can pick the topic, but also just let it flow. Like I think what Paulina said about perfection, it's a fallacy. And in fact, I only dedicated like full heart and time to those projects that I know they will learn so much, and I would love to show my portfolio. But what I'm spending hours in this text that I don't care. Perhaps you care about the text. Do it right and publish it. Like try to have a plan for those things you work on, and the rest is just like I did, like I just submitted, period.
Somebody mentioned at the beginning of this conversation about how, pulling an all-nighter really is counterproductive. And it's okay to go take a fat nap, and you'll probably come back more refreshed and get more done afterwards. And, we don't pull many all-nighters in the professional world anymore, because it just also it's harder to recover as you get older. But, it's not productive. So
I recently graduated, so I'm just gonna throw this in here. I had a professor who would, hear us kind of like anxious spiraling about all the deadlines coming up. And something that he taught us to do, which it does take a little bit of time and like a calculator, but I feel, at least for me and like the way that my brain works, it really helps. So what he would do was like pick a day in time, right? Like you can start with today, and you count how many days you have until finals, right? And then this is where you pull out your calculator, you add up all the hours from here until then. And after that, you start taking away hours for sleeping, because you have to sleep. Sleeping really makes a difference in your productivity. Taking away time to eat, at least like 3 hours of your day for eating, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and time to like use the bathroom, time if you work, like the hours of your shift. And then once you start like deducting all of these like important and necessary hours that you can't use for like schoolwork, after that, you start dividing what's left, and you can see like it's really surprising how many hours you do actually have to use, but kind of get lost in the everyday like panicking over like everything you have to do. At least for me, because I was always like, oh no, I have everything to do. And it's like, well, you have time. And sometimes it really helps to see it. And that way you can like divide it out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That sounds like a great trick.
Good luck.
It,
Yeah.
it is a really good trick because it does help to visualize it. I mean, we're architects, we're visual people, so
Yeah,
That's
I'm
how
gonna
you
use
build a
that for my
project
daily
set.
life.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
was gonna
helps
say
a lot.
that's also how you build a project schedule, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
I think that's kind of what he was trying to show us too. So he was like, "This is good practice." Here you go. Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I wanted to add one thing that it was discussed earlier. Like for the students and the new hires, how do you think it's the best? I think talking to probably more of like the project manager like Paulina or firm leaders like Camille, like how do you guys would recommend these young professionals to approach you when they're burned out? Because we talked about all of that, but like what would be the best scenarios to come to approach you? Because they don't normally know how to speak up about these things. Um,
You're right, they don't. And we do have to do a lot of looking out. Like we can usually see it about the time that they're starting to see it too. Like it's not an easy thing to hide. And so oftentimes we will pull people aside before they know how to do it themselves and talk them through it. Just try to figure out break it down. What is the most stressful thing? What are the things that are giving you problems right now? I think anyone should be able to do that. I mean, they should know that any firm owner, any project manager, anyone else in their office has probably experienced this as well. And we know it's not a personality flaw. It's a thing that happens to everybody. And everyone who's been through it knows it and understands that. I mean, I'm going to say that because we're all very self-aware folks in this room. I'm sure there are people out there running firms that are not. But you might find someone that is closer to you. Like maybe you don't need to go straight to the firm owner. Maybe there's a project manager that's over you or someone that you trust, and you can have a conversation with them. They may be able to, if it's something that needs to go above and beyond that person, they may have a better relationship with the firm owner or some other way to get there. Um, I don't know. We have a smaller firm and everyone's kind of comfortable talking about. I would hope anyone could come to us. They have in the past. I do know we've also had employees that have had issues and they haven't brought them up. And we heard way too late. And they were like, "Do you remember a year and a half ago when such and such happened?" You're like, "No, I don't." That was a year and a half ago. I'm sorry. I wish we talked about it earlier. So don't let it fester. You'll get resentful. You'll start getting really annoyed with the people that you work with. Bring it up fast.
I think Paula brought it up earlier about, if you see the people that are working longer hours and trying to get ahead, I, at least in my experience, the people that are pulling those longer hours are not necessarily trying to pull ahead. Maybe there's a little bit of that, but I think that when you recognize that, then as a manager, I can go up to them and say, hey, did I overload you? Because why are you working so much? You know, the rest of the team is not working this much. Why are you working this much? And I think it's exactly what Camille was saying. We look out for our team members. And I think it doesn't have to be a manager looking out for team members. I think it could be your peer, it could be anybody. I think just being able to speak up or seeing that somebody else is struggling and asking where the support needs to be.
Yeah, great. I think logistically, it's okay to ask for one-on-one time with someone, whether it's your personal project manager or one of the principals. You'd be surprised. Like usually we think like no one wants to hang out with us because like, you know, we're the boss and they don't want to, you don't want to talk about things that you might hear, right? But actually it's okay to say, hey, can I chat with you for 10 minutes or do you have 10 minutes to talk? You know, I think that is okay. And you can find 10 minutes, anyone can find 10 minutes in their day to just check in on someone and hopefully they're a safe space where you can share, you know, what you're feeling. But I think you'd be surprised how accessible, you know, I think a lot of people really are.
I think the other thing to remember, and then I'll butt out and let the rest of you guys talk, but sometimes when there's enough of an age gap or an experience gap, you forget that the people that are the firm owners and the higher up managers are also still learning and are also people. And, you know, we have been, both Ada and I have been very open about our own experiences with burnout and stress with our employees. And I have had to call meetings to apologize to people in my office because I was very stressed out about something and it had nothing to do with people in the room necessarily. And I brought stuff into the office that I should not have. And we're all human. And all you can do is talk to the people and hope that you can repair it and apologize and let them know that like we're all learning. Nobody is perfect, and navigating these things, especially when you're under extreme stress, are very, very difficult. You don't always do the right thing. So that's all I have.
Do we have any other questions? No? Okay. So that concludes today's session. Just to let you guys know some of our upcoming sessions that we have. November 13th, which is tomorrow, for our WiA Austin members, there is a happy hour at Farmhouse Stone at 5:30 for whoever can make it. And then on November 14th, for WiA El Paso members, there is a firm crawl with the local universities. So make sure that you sign up. And there's also going to be a happy hour for the students as well. And then we have the WiA Austin Scholar Program. I don't know if Alejandra, you want to talk about this. This is more like your guys's
Yes, thank you,
program.
Isis. Yeah, this is the WiA Austin Scholar Program that we offer for UT students of architecture. And as you all know, because of the SB 17 rule that we have here in Austin, this is more like a hush hush. So if you are a student and are in UT, either an undergrad or grad, please share this information with your peers and apply. We highly encourage you so you can get this financial assistance.
Okay, and then for our WiA El Paso students, we do have the WiA El Paso Scholarship in memory of Mabel Welch. As far as the submission dates, we are still on the lookout for that, but definitely check our Instagram and check the Texas Architecture Foundation. Our scholarship is through them. But yeah, if any of you want to apply, hopefully to either scholarship, whichever school you go to, hopefully you guys get it.